All right. Well, thank you, everybody who is here, staying to listen to me talk about new methods to attack and defend Active Directory. Uh, so, as stated, I'm Eric Kuehn. I'm actually one of the principal consultants at Secure Ideas. We partner with Black Hills and Antisyphon, run all of our courses through here as well. Um, when I am not teaching or training, I am actually a pen tester as well. So where I'm coming from is kind of an in-between state. Before I became a pen tester, I was responsible for some very large directories out there. And I've been involved in dealing with AD since before it was released. I've seen a lot of good things. I've seen a lot of bad things. And I've seen some changes occur over the last 20-ish plus years, almost 25 now. And it really has been an interesting time. So, what I'm hearing, I'm saying new methods to attack and defend. The new methods are really a change on some old methods. You may or may not be aware, if you haven't been dealing with Active Directory and you haven't been a sysadmin, that Microsoft recently has actually put in some security enhancements. There have been some abuses that have happened over the last several years. AD is in every Windows environment. If you have more than 5 computers, all right, we'll say 10, and you aren't completely Azure joined. Active Directory is there for people to have one centralized ID to reach out, talk to other things, etc. So it's had some problems. Overall, AD is actually not that insecure. Even if we go way back when, 2008, 2003, AD was fairly secure on its own. Administrators have done things, though, to make it less secure. And some of those issues are all based upon where people are logging into other devices or bad passwords stored in different locations, etc. And really, eDirectory, please come back. How about Novell? Everybody move to Novell, right? That would be a good place for us to go there. Thank you, NetWare. Awesome. I actually did start with Novell 3.1 and then move to 4 and then 5 and then 6 and then over into Active Directory. So I do remember those days as well. I would also say, if you have any questions, please do put them in Discord. I can be happy to sit here and ramble, but if you have questions, I would love to answer them as you bring them up to me. So changes. We've had some security issues. There's easy ways to abuse certificates, or easy ways to abuse Kerberos. NTLM, we're not going to cover NTLM, but we're actually going to cover a couple of things that Microsoft started back in 2022 that held in through 2023, continuing through this year and into next year. And these are all about changes to Kerberos and then certificate-based authentication. The Kerberos PAC stuff that we'll be talking about first actually started in 2022. They ran into problems, delayed some things until 2023, and then it officially became fully active in 2023. And then they started a whole second round of this in April of this year, which will go through 2025. The certificate-based changes are started early 2023 and will continue on through this year into early next year as well. So the first item, we're talking about Kerberos. Kerberos is one authentication method that is used in an Active Directory environment. It is considered much more secure than NTLM, which has been around for even longer than Kerberos and does have many issues being a challenge and response type protocol. Easy to intercept and manipulate. Kerberos is all about tickets passing around in your network, and tickets are point to point. You can use them. You're supposed to only be able to use them from one place. There are some ways to change that, but it is all about validating your identity to a system and saying, I would like to access you. It used to be very easy to forge your own certificates once you got a certain level of access in Active Directory, called golden tickets. That attack methodology has been around for quite a while. Microsoft decided that we need to make some changes, and so they started playing with the PAC signature. The PAC is the Privileged Attribute Certificate. It's a little bit of extra piece of information that is attached to a Kerberos ticket. It's basically extra information that talks about groups that you are a member of, a couple other attributes, other pieces of information, and it's there so that the device that you're connecting to when you're trying to access an application or something doesn't need to actually reach out and look up other information for you. It's included in this extra piece. The PAC is actually not part of the Kerberos standard, but it is there to be used. So what happened is when you made these golden tickets and you said, I know that I'm actually just Eric, but I want to be that domain admin over there, and I want to add myself to all of these other groups, it was easy to put them in there because there wasn't actually any validation. What happened is Microsoft went through, made a few changes now to how the PAC is formed and how it's signed and what's in there, and it's causing some changes with some tools that we commonly use out there. Diamond tickets are forever. Nice. Yes, if you want to go in and re-sign everything, you get that level access. Diamond tickets, yes, one extra step above a golden ticket. The diamond ticket is where you actually get your own TGT or your own ticket. You basically change it and re-sign it when you get that level of access. So it's not creating a brand new ticket, but using one that already exists and changing the information in it. So what happened is Microsoft started rolling out a whole bunch of changes and it broke all sorts of things out there. This might be why Microsoft doesn't like to change things, because people aren't always putting their systems in the proper way, or the way that Microsoft expects them to be done. All sorts of things broke, especially if the organization decided to not stick with the old hashing algorithm, RC4, and move to AES encryption and other hashing options. So Microsoft paused, decided to delay, changed the rollout to take a much longer time. And all of their troubleshooting, actually, and everything that they went through and released to the community, if they were having problems, started showing that you should be using the AES encryption and AES hashes instead. So that's actually one takeaway for us as we're talking about things here. Most of the tools out there are still reference using the old NTLM hash, right? Called NTLM, et cetera. Use that hash when you are creating your tickets. You can still do that and it will be accepted, but they start showing up as an anomaly, perhaps, if people are looking for it. So we want to start using the AES instead. But there were some other things that came through. The changes that are occurring now that started in April are really all about trying to better limit what information is moved around a Windows trust. And a trust is when you have two domains that are allowed to talk to each other and pass information back and forth. Let me see. Any other questions? Nope, I don't see any right now. So when you look at information out of AD, if anybody is familiar with Mimikatz, which is the Swiss Army knife and the every Windows administrator's nightmare, you will see that it returns both this NTLM hash and then these other ones down here. When you forge a ticket, when you create a golden ticket, you say, I want to be someone else. What you're doing is you are saying, I'm Eric, or I'm whoever I say I am. I'm going to use the account that actually creates these tickets in the environment. And I'm going to just insert information and sign it and encrypt it with this password hash for the account KRB TGT. That's essentially what you're doing. You're just creating one out of thin air and you are encrypting it and signing it, sending it on its way. As I said, many of the tools out there will say use this one still, but really we want to start looking at this AES one down here at the bottom. The thing is, if you use the tools as they are often documented to you right now, what's going to happen at this moment is actually you might fail. And you'll get to this interesting error about it didn't work, or it had a failure with trust, any number of interesting errors. But on the back end, on the domain controller, they're going to see a new error. It's not going to be in the security event log. It's going to be in the system event log, but it's going to say that I could not actually do something because it didn't work right. I didn't know what to do with this. NTLM versus Kerberos. Yep, from CrowdStrike. Very nice. So we have to be careful with what tools we're using to forge tickets and how that works. The good news is pass the ticket still works well. That has not gone away. But the tools that we use to actually do this forging might change depending on what you're using. So let me stop sharing and let me see everybody cross your fingers and we're going to see if this will work here. So I have my Windows server. It is part of a domain. I'm logged in as a server admin. And we're nice. I found this through some tool. And I know that over here, I also have this domain admin logged in. He's on a different session, but he's sitting right here on this box. I just have admin access to the server. I'm not a domain admin yet, but we're going to see what happens. So we need to open up PowerShell as an administrator. And that's always how you should open PowerShell, right? Always open it as administrator. Don't do it in any other way. I've been lucky as well. We're able to just kind of load the Mimikatz executable here on its own. You probably would not be able to do that easily everywhere, but it's still here. Oops, let's actually change directories to go in there instead of if you haven't seen Mimikatz, you have everybody's favorite, wonderful tool, still does a tremendous amount for us, built by an incredibly smart man who wanted to learn about Windows security. He didn't actually go out there to build the tool that everybody would start basing other things on to abuse Active Directory and Windows security, but it's there. So because this domain admin is sitting here, after I decide to elevate to system, I can actually see his tickets, his Kerberos tickets. And once again, the ticket is an identity. What I want to do is I'm going to export these. The specific command, very easy, sec URL SA tickets export. This will actually throw all of the Kerberos tickets down to a file wherever you ran Mimikatz from. I'm running through this a little bit fast because the main purpose is to show a difference, but we can see that I have this ticket here. I know that this is the person's identity, domain admin one's identity, because it came from the KRB TGT account. That account sits in every Active Directory environment, and it is the one that is used to actually, once again, create tickets. So what I want to do is I want to become this person. And we're going to use Mimikatz, use another very simple command here. Basically, I'm telling it that I have this ticket and I want to become this person. I'm saying I want to run a pass the ticket attack. Now, if everything works well, hopefully, it would let me actually log on to the domain controller. We're going to see if it does. All right, I was able to. So even though I'm just a server admin, which I started over here, SA1, server admin 1, it errors out. But through this administrative window, I was able to come out and become somebody else. I want to jump back into Mimikatz, though, to show you what happens once you become a domain admin and you want to be able to start forging your own tickets. That's what we're here to talk about more than anything. So that is a different command once you have domain admin level privileges or some other accounts. I'm actually going to go through and say, reach into Active Directory, doing a DC sync, but I'm going to reach into Active Directory as if I was a domain controller. And I want to pull the password information, all of the information for the KRB TGT account. Nice and easy. We can see the account exists. Once again, it's going to exist in every environment. And we get the hashes that I was talking about. Now, most tools and documentation out there will tell you, all right, you want to create a golden ticket for yourself. And you can use Mimikatz to do that. Unfortunately, it does not always work. I don't feel like typing out the entire command, but I'll tell you what it is in just a second. Basically, I'm telling Mimikatz, create a new TGT, my identity, a golden ticket. I'm going to be creating it in the domain lab.pvt because that's where I am. I have to give it some other pieces of information, such as the SID of the domain, who I want to be, which is this person here, the identity, which is his SID, the groups I want to be a part of, and then the AES hash. These groups, these numbers, what do they mean? They're actually well-known SIDs. It's saying I am part of domain admins and enterprise admins is what it's actually saying. And I got his SID because I did a little bit of information and I queried that out of Active Directory earlier. So I run this same command. I'm saying create this golden ticket and inject it into this session with the PTT, pass the ticket. And it says, great, Mimikatz said it created it. Thank you for seeing the typo. I appreciate it. I missed the R. That is awesome. I may have to restart the window because Mimikatz doesn't always work well. So let us restart that. Thank you, sir. Jump back into the directory. Gar. We'll try this again. We'll fix my little typo here. Instead of it being goops, it will be groups. That would be a great command. We want to do goops. We'll see if it works. All right, created the ticket again. As you noticed, even though I had an error, because we're doing it with Mimikatz and we're forging a ticket, it takes all the information that you put in there and creates that ticket for you. It doesn't make a difference if it's right or wrong. It will do whatever it can. All right. Now let's see what happens here. We saw with the pass the ticket attack I did before when I became DA1, because I stole his session off the device, I was able to enter a PS session, connect to that domain controller remotely. And this time it fails. Live classes always have time. Thank you. That is a very true point. So it failed. Not only did it fail, if we look at my domain controller, is that this? Oops. Let's share the right server. Give me 1 second. Sorry. I got thrown off by my typo. All righty. Here we go. We actually look at the domain controller. We'll see that error came up. There might have been errors in the system or in the security event log as well, but it's already here. Yep, a new error. Now, here's the question. Is anybody looking for this error? And I don't know. So hopefully from a blue team perspective, you are looking for these. They're not in the normal place. Yes, you should be looking for this. Absolutely. And I'm going to put the events a little bit later. But yes, you absolutely want to be looking for some new errors in the system event log for domain controllers because it starts showing you these things. The question came in, can you do this with the other AES value that you showed, the 128? You can. I would probably move to the 256, though, and just use that one instead. Some tools prefer it. We're going to cover that in a minute as well. So there are actually a whole bunch of different event IDs that we'll be talking about that come through here. This one is 37, but there's more that you want to be looking for. All right. So Mimikatz may or may not, most likely at this point, will not actually let you forge a ticket, but that's okay. there are other tools that you could use instead. My favorite right now is Rubius, written by incredibly smart people, Will Schroeder and others. This one is working. It is handling the PAC appropriately, and therefore will let you go through and actually forge a ticket. We're going to see as I copy and paste, and hopefully I have the right information this time. I didn't misspell anything like goops. It actually works remarkably the same. The information I'm giving it is the exact same and almost formatted the exact same way. As you see, I'm calling Rubius instead. I'm going to make a golden ticket. Here is the password hash again, AES 256. I want to become DA1. I'm actually going to tell what domain controller I said created this ticket. In this case, DC Lab, my main one. The domain, SIDS, everything is the same. It quickly creates the ticket and the Kirby file for me. It should have thrown us right here. Another tool for you right now, if you're not familiar, there's this wonderful tool in every Windows box called K-List, Kerberos list. There we see I have a Kerberos ticket. And now, if everything goes well, there we go. So I can still forge tickets. It can still be done, but you can't use Mimikatz to do it. Mimikatz did have a pull request to incorporate the PAC changes, but for some reason, I don't see it in the executable if you pull it down. So Mimikatz may not be the way for you to go, especially if you're pulling the precompiled executable down. You might want to look at rewriting portions of it your entire self. The entire Windows print subsys. There are, if the question came in, are there ones that don't use the AES encryption? That is possible. The thing is, when we're talking about Kerberos itself, a lot of it is the ticket information and a system being able to unencrypt it and see it. When we're talking about a TGT, one of the two types of tickets, that is your identity, that is going to be interpreted by the domain controller, and therefore AES encryption 256, no problem. If you are creating what's called a silver ticket, that is instead of trying to create a new identity for yourself to be used everywhere, it is trying to forge a service ticket that you are presenting to a specific application. That one may not understand the AES encryption at this point, but most likely it will. So to reiterate, did I mention? So to use these tools, I did briefly say, but not specific, but that is a correct response. For you to be able to create a ticket, to forge a ticket, what you need to do is get some way of getting those password hashes for KRB TGT. You don't have to be a domain admin once you have those password hashes. At that point, you're good to go. The thing is, to get those password hashes, the easiest way to get them is by becoming a domain admin. Or you could find a system that has replicate directory changes all as a permission. And then you can use that and you'll be able to pull information out of AD, password hashes out of AD. Or perhaps you find a method to become the domain controller. You could do it the same. So once again, getting the password hashes, that could be problematic. But if you somehow get them, now you don't need to be a domain admin anymore. So yes, these are all post-exploitation. If you're able to become the domain admin, you really don't need to be forging tickets unless you need to jump across boundaries or get somewhere else. Yep. Interforce tickets are usually passed through NTLMs.AES. Yeah, that can be done, etc. Absolutely. So the point is, becoming a domain admin still can be done by using a passive ticket attack. If you want to forge tickets, Mimikatz may not be the first thing to use. The other takeaways, and we'll cover it at the very end, we need to be looking for more events and not just out of the system event log. Uh, sorry, we need to be looking in the system event log, not the security event log all the time. So certificates, the next big method since about 2020, 2021, depending on when you might have heard about it, but 2021 is when it was officially released publicly by SpectreOps. There's this method that you can have a certificate from a Windows CA, and then you can pretend to be someone else again. At this point, Active Directory will allow certificates to be presented as an identity and authentication. If you have the appropriate certificate, once again, you can pretend to become anybody that you want. This was a complete and total blind spot for quite a while. If you had the ability to request a certificate in a special way, you could become anybody you wanted to. They have gone through, and most of the changes were really about how you could abuse information in Active Directory to request a certificate as if you're somebody else. There are still methods where if there's a bad certificate template out there in Active Directory and on the CA, you can still inject your own information into it, and it will let you become somebody else. It's called escape one, is the classic way when we look at these attack methodologies. The thing is, if you follow the examples that are out there by default, it will work. It's still going to work. You're still going to be able to become somebody. No problem. However, it will create an event on the domain controllers, yet again, therefore not being as hidden as you used to be. So it is still possible for us to forge certificates. We just need to add a little bit more information to stay a little bit more stealthy. So let's go over this one really fast in case you haven't seen it before. Show you what this all looks like. In this case, I'm on my Kali box. We're not going to be using a Windows server anymore. We could. There is a Certify version that's out there, but I tend to use Certify instead, which is Python-based, would work on Windows as well, but easy enough to get on a Kali box. The first command I'm going to use here from Certify is the find command. And I'm actually saying I just want it to show me the vulnerable certificates here. Yes, there are awesome posts out there by Harmjoy and others on how to abuse Active Directory certificate services. Absolutely. This time, I'm going to just be saying I'm a normal user. Perhaps I got a normal user's credentials somehow through responder or poisoning, or I've been given them right automatically. So I don't even have any administrative privileges at all in the domain or devices. So we're going to run this, enter password, and it will tell us all the vulnerable certificates that exist. And in this case, we have a nice one, and it tells me automatically, hey, here's a certificate template where we can specify our own subject or our own subject alternate name, and therefore we can become somebody else. This is easy enough to do for us to abuse. Somebody asked testing from Windows or Kali. I will tell you, testing from Kali works great. I find there are times where testing from a Windows box is better than testing from a Kali box. Not always, but sometimes. I prefer testing from a Windows box in most cases, just because I find it a little bit easier to blend in with what is going on and looking more like a normal administrator out there rather than potentially a malicious actor. But either way, it will work. So I found this certificate template out here called new user. They put it in badly. So now what we're going to do is by running another wonderful command here from Certify, maybe. Come on, copy. There we go. And I will show everybody the command because it did not format well. So here's the command. We're going to make a request. I'm going to be user one. I'm going to make a request to the domain controller. I want to use the new user template that we found that was vulnerable. And I'm going to say, hey, actually, I want to be DA1. So please just make me domain admin 1 when I request the certificate. And you will see that it will take it and understand and make me a domain admin. Let's see if it actually works here. Because it is formatting poorly. All right. So we ran the command. What happened in the background is Certipy reached out to the certificate server. It said, make me a certificate that actually says, even though I'm user 1, add in domain admin 1 here. That is what it did. And it created the PFX file, the certificate file. So now, if this worked, and I give it the DC IP address, yet again here, if this works, it should let us log in, and it will actually, thank you, it will show us and get us the password hash for domain admin 1. I was able to log in, and here's the password hash. So now I'm able to log in as the domain admin with other tools because we can supply this. That's great. It worked. However, if we go back to our domain controller again here, and I refresh the system event log, we have a different error. It worked, but it said, I created this, I let it log in and get become domain admin 1, but I wasn't really sure who this guy was. That's what it's saying right now. Come early next year, it will start blocking this altogether because it doesn't have what's called strict mapping. It doesn't know who I am. So we want to avoid this error. How do we do that? Well, we request the certificate with a little bit of extra information. Not much. What we have to do is just supply it 2 pieces of information that make it look like a certificate that was issued by the CA properly. And in that case, you know what? Let me escape out of that because, thank you. All we have to do is supply the distinguished name of the person we want to become and their SID. We got the SID before. We can show this, and I could show a command that will give it to you. It will give both pieces of information. So I'm going to request a new certificate that added, once again, this is the distinguished name. It always will look like this type of format, and the SID of the domain admin. I'm going to authenticate again. Maybe. Thank you. With this new certificate, it's going to work again. But if we go look at the domain controller, it did not show any events. It said everything is A-OK. Which one am I sharing? Perfect. No errors, no problems. Did I share the wrong screen before? You were still seeing the event log? I will show you the other command. Sorry, I apologize. But we will see that no events were created in the domain controller. It worked perfectly fine. Let's change my share back to the one that I wanted to show the new command here. Here we go. So here's the new command. All I did was add a new tag called subject and a new command called SID. That's the only difference. And now it shows up, or now it is considered a properly formatted certificate. It let me log in using the certificate, even though I'm a normal user, and it let me log in as a domain admin in this case. And no events were generated that said there was anything wrong with this behavior. So running through all of this once again, we still are able to do attacks as a pen tester or a red teamer. We are still able to do a lot of the same things that we did before. We just might need to change it a little bit so that we are supplying the right information and it's looking like it's supposed to, not just something that is in the default examples for these tools. Yep, multipass, exactly. Become whoever you want. So red teamers, we have options. Number one, if we want to attack certificates, be sure we add the subject and SID. When we're talking about creating new tickets for Kerberos, I would move on to either building your own based off of Mimikatz or Rubris or using Rubius itself. Two great options for you. For a defender, I will show that in just a second. For the defending people, what do we need to look for here? We need to start looking in the system event log on domain controllers, just on the system event log. There are some things in there that sometimes appear as security issues. These, I can't pretend that I know why Microsoft makes whatever decisions they are making. My guess is all of these events have been created because something did not work as expected, and therefore it wasn't necessarily a security issue, right? Once again, that's my supposition. I don't work for Microsoft. So whatever reason they chose, they are not putting these in the security event log. They are in the system event log. We are looking for the sources of Kerberos Key Distribution Center, Security Kerberos, NetLogon, and KDC-SVC. Those are the sources. And then we're looking for warning and error event types of these numbers, 35, 37, 38, 40, 39, 43, 44, et cetera. 58, 42, and 58, 43 for NetLogon here. These are what we're looking for. These will start showing you if people are doing things in your environment that may or may not be working, or you might not know about otherwise unless you start looking for these types of events on DCs. So I said I would show how we got that information. Here we go. Let me leave. Got bugs to kill. Getting the information is very easy. It would make more sense. All right, I will be happy to change that slide and post it out there as a table instead. I'll be happy to do that. I can't see what somebody posted there. I can't see it. It's not big enough for me to see what was posted. I will look at that in a minute. So getting the information out of Active Directory. I'm a fan of using the Active Directory commandlets that are part of PowerShell, the remote server administration tools. As a normal user, as soon as you have credentials, they don't need to be special, just a normal user, I can go out there and just simply say, give me the information for domain admin 1, get AD user. Here is the distinguished name, and here is his SID, the two pieces of information that you need to supply to request the certificate. And once again, anybody can do this as long as you have access to AD. You don't have to just use the PowerShell commandlets. Another favorite tool that I have, and I tell everybody they should start using, something called LDP. This also comes with the RSAT tools for Active Directory. I like this one over other LDAP tools, LDAP search, et cetera, because it will translate things for you. Because everything in Active Directory is technically text, and there are different types of attributes, and some are numbers, which mean something specific. Others are actual text. So here, for example, we can see the translation here for us for some of these things and why I like LDP so much. This is saying it's this functionality, Windows 2016, and it tells us. Other LDP or other LDAP tools would only tell you 7 not actually what that means. But you can get the same piece of information by looking at the tools with any LDAP search. I don't remember where he is. So let's see if I can spell same account name properly here. So I just did a search for DA1 again with an LDAP tool, and once again, it presents it. You have many abilities, many methods to get this information, and all you're typically looking for most of the tools, once again, are domain at are the distinguished name and the object SID or SID. And yes, the PowerShell AD commandlets are part of the remote server administration tools, installable on any Windows server for free without a reboot, and also installable on any Windows 11 client. You could also use ADSI. Once again, as long as you can query LDAP, it doesn't make a difference what tool you're using. It will get you the same information because LDAP and Active Directory is meant to be readable. That's its point out there. So LDAP search. Oh, somebody very nice putting an LDAP search command. Perfect. So let's see. We are asking to, yep, bind to lab.pbt, object class start. Yep. So I hate to be, I'm not a fan of LDAP search because I can never remember the commands, right? All the different flags. But it is there. I've had to use it recently and I was not thrilled about it, but I would much rather use something like LDP, CSVDE, which is also part of Windows, any number of tools. So he's saying it's going to be noisy because you're basically saying, give me everything out of Active Directory is what Carr just put there. Yep, it's going to dump everything. He didn't limit it to anything. When you query Active Directory, you want to be as precise as you can be. When you start making queries that return way too much information or perhaps aren't formed well or doing searches on things that aren't indexed, like any sort of database or directory service, it will start returning errors to you. So, or sorry, it won't return errors. It will return it all to you, but the domain controller is going to flag it as potentially being interesting or inefficient. Will this work for attacking Azure AD or if Active Directory is connected to Azure AD? This does not work for Azure AD directly or Entra ID. That is, yes, if you stick up with the new names because they renamed Azure AD to Entra AD, I really wish they would have renamed Active Directory because it's giving us a false pretense of what it is. It works differently. So these same attacks do not work exactly the same, and you can't do it the exact same way. So not really. If you are connected into Azure and you're doing some sort of sync, then what you could do, and they do single sign-on, then yes, you could use this internally to become somebody else there. AD by any other name is still AD. That is true. That is a true statement, but it's a little bit different in how they work and what's going on between the two. Entra AD is not the same. It does not work the same as on-prem Active Directory. Watch this. Yep. Let me change what I'm sharing here. So once again, I will redo this slide for everybody so that it shows up in a little bit more of a table method, and I'll send that back out here. So in summary, all of the attacks that we're doing still work. We just might need to do it a little bit differently than we were. Active Directory ADHD, slightly different there, Lionshare, slightly different. But maybe, depending on the environment. So we can still do everything we did as attackers. We just might need to do it a little bit differently. Add some more pieces of information when we're requesting certificates or trying to forge a Kerberos ticket. I expect in the near future, we're going to stop seeing RC4 encrypted Kerberos everywhere. only because all of the troubleshooting tools and posts and documentation out there that Microsoft is submitting is showing how to use the AES version at this point. So we as attackers, let's stop using the RC4 unless we absolutely have to. Move to the AES encryption when we're doing things. It might be best that maybe it's time to think about using some of our older attack methods again. Let's, inject into a process maybe instead of trying to do some of these fun things with Mimikatz or Rubrus or whatever it is. Those still will work quite well. It's a perfect valid way of moving around. And once again, what we're doing might be detected by domain controllers if we don't add those extra pieces of information. And finally, the last part for defenders, let's start looking at that system event log on domain controllers for security problems. Warnings and errors for Kerberos Key Distribution Center, Security Kerberos, NetLogon, and KDC SVC. Those are absolutely things. And those don't require that you have Kerberos auditing turned on to the max for you to see these things. Absolutely. Microsoft has been focused on security forever, and they are making changes. And I'm happy that they are making changes to Active Directory. There haven't been significant changes security related for quite a while up until these updates. So that's really all I wanted to cover. I know I ran through a whole bunch of stuff, did some demos that actually kind of worked. What other questions are there?
Everybody, you can just drop your questions in Discord. Eric, thank you. This was great. And thank you so much for going through all the Discord questions as you went along. That was super helpful. That was awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem.
I do have a question for you. While you were going on, I was thinking, if you're not doing this full time in your professional career, how hard is it to stay up with all the constant changes? And if it is difficult, what do you recommend to people so they can stay up to date?
Great question. And so it is insanely hard to keep up with what is going on out there because it's changing. And in a lot of cases, what I'm seeing these days are kind of the same thing. It's changes are happening that are just being included in massive security patches. And unless you have your own lab and you're trying things out all the time, it's very hard to see what's happening. It is easier probably for a defender or a server admin right now to know how things are changing, but they may not understand what it actually means.
Sure.
So very hard. For me, I just read up on the patches every month. I'm lucky enough to have to be responsible for patching a bunch of devices everywhere. So I want to know what's happening. That's how I tend to keep up on it. But it is very, very hard. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great advice. And do you have a checklist, Eric, for all the things you have to keep up on? Because you're I check it on a monthly and I'm like, you must have a gigantic checklist that you keep each month of things that you need to stay updated on.
So for me, luckily for me, my focus is AD. So that kind of limits me in one general direction, but that's all of Windows. So that is everything that I am actively looking at all the time. And then I lean on the other people at Secure Ideas and other people at Black Hills and other groups as well for what they're seeing about web apps and other things. It's great that as a community, there are so many talented people out there. You just need to listen to them and they'll help you along the way because it is impossible for you to stay up on everything everywhere all the time.
Right. I think that's one of the challenges for anybody kind of new to the cyber industry is that you want to learn so much so fast all at once. And it's just not possible.
No,
it's just not.
Overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. I'm kind of going through Discord. You got most of the questions. After we are all going to head to a breakout room for any other additional questions that you may have. It doesn't have to be on Eric's presentation. We will take all and any questions. I believe Zach Hill and Megan will also be joining us for that in the breakout room. Zach, you want to say hello?
Hello.
He's live
everybody.
on location.
in
Oh,
the airport, right?
Yeah, in O'Hare Airport. It's great.
ooh.
Wonderful. Waiting for my flight. Thank you, Eric. I was tuning in and you did phenomenal as always. So appreciate
Thank you.
you sharing your knowledge with us.
It looks like there are a couple of questions in Zoom before we head over.
Oh, okay.
Oh, what did I miss?
Let's see. So, where'd it go? Every time I go to one, somebody asks another one and I lose it. Will this work for Azure AD? Also, if AD is connected to Azure AD, can we pivot to attacking Azure AD?
Yep. And so, yes, if they're connected, if you have the sync going and they're connected, you should be able to pivot across. And I hate giving definitive answers because companies set up that connection point and single sign-on and everything in so many different ways between on-prem and Azure. It's very hard to say, will absolutely work, but theoretically it will. At a minimum, absolute minimum, what you can do if you get high-level privileges like domain admin, you can get the password hash, the NTLM password hash for anybody in the directory, like we did for KRB TGT, get their password hash and throw that in your cracking rig. Because it is an NTLM hash, it cracks very fast. So that's absolutely, at a minimum, you could get passwords. But then, of course, there's other aspects you have to think about, such as access policies and how they're allowing access into Azure. There's a whole bunch of other caveats there that make it hard to say it will absolutely work or not.
Okay, here's another one. They not to be condescending, but do good concrete strategies exist for monitoring Kerberos techniques that will allow for early detection that won't generate a ton of false positives? APT groups rapid increase of using Kerberos just shows that it works almost every time.
Oh yeah, so didn't even cover that. That's something I cover in my class, which I'm actually redoing at this point, updating it all. But Kerberos, wonderful method for escalating privileges and pivoting all at once. It's great. Kerberos is if you have an application that is Kerberos aware, it has an identity in Active Directory. Just like we can go out there and request service tickets to access it, those service tickets are encrypted with the password hash of the account that the application is registered to. Simplest way of saying it. You take those password hashes offline, you start cracking them. The best way, honestly, the best way for you to detect this is by doing a canary. All of the other methods that say, let me go out there and see when somebody requests a service ticket and what's going on, is all based upon a high watermark and your estimation of how many tickets are being requested in your environment. Very, very difficult to do. Creating a canary account out there that has an SPN registered to it that looks like a real account. Don't name it something strange. Make it look like a service account. But it doesn't go anywhere. Give that account a password that is 64 characters long that you will never, ever, ever crack. You're set. As soon as somebody requests a service ticket for it, because there's actually no application that it's pointed to, bam, you'll know. And then you'll see that request and you look for that one specifically. That is a great method of detecting it.
Okay, gonna sound like a noob here, but some of this is over my head. How do I better understand this? Do I need to become a sysadmin?
Great question. So without the context of if you are a researcher, a pen tester, or a defender, for a pen tester, I would say, I'm not trying to just plug classes, but the classes that are taught by Antisyphon, there was my Active Directory course, and I know there's another gentleman who has one as well, who will cover a lot of the same material. Both of those are great ways.
Directory.
Yeah.
Had Steele Hobbs.
Okay, Dale Hobbs. So both of those are great courses to get a better understanding of what is going on. My class focuses in on explaining AD and what is going on when you do the attacks. So I would definitely recommend it. Dale's class is great as well. Definitely something to do. But I will tell you, and what I tell anybody who's thinking about becoming a pen tester, Knowing a technology is more important than knowing how to attack it. If you understand the technology, attacking it becomes easy. So yes, mess around to become a Windows system admin, see how to create a domain, how to join a computer to the domain, see what's going on. Absolutely would be a great way of doing it.
Somebody asked, does making DAs protected accounts make this more difficult?
Ooh, awesome question. Yes and no. So there's a special group in Active Directory called the Protected Users Group. When it's a special group out there, and when your account is a member of it, lots of attacks stop working. It as it says, it makes them more protected, but it doesn't alleviate it. There are still ways of getting around that depending on where those domain admin accounts are logged in and what they're doing. The best way to protect your domain admin accounts is don't let them log on to anything except domain controllers. Bam, done, easy. That is the simplest way to protect them.
Kathy Collins, who we all know, needed to know if Zach got a hot dog at O'Hare.
Top question of the day.
I was going to get a hot dog, honestly, and I should have taken a picture of the sign because there was a big sign right next to the hot dog stand saying it is a criminal offense to put ketchup on a hot dog in Chicago city limit. It's just hilarious because that is a total Chicago thing. That ketchup does
so
not
funny.
go on a hot dog. But I got a euro.
Oh, well. Let's see. There is a couple more. Let me.
We got about 4 minutes left.
Yeah. Can you capture the domain admin ticket with anything besides Mimikatz?
Yes, there are other tools that will let you do it. And you're going to ask me what they are, and I couldn't tell you at this moment. Mimikatz is one. Well, Rubius will let you do it. Really, it's interacting with the security subsystem. Yeah, there are other tools that will do it. I would urge you to perhaps look at some of the tools that are out on GitHub and maybe look at making your own version and taking some things out there.
Are there any group policy settings to block these attacks? For example, force LDAP signing.
LDAP signing definitely helps, and that requires that we trust certificates and some other aspects. So it will help, absolutely. But it all depends on where I'm doing the attacks from, right? If I'm doing it from some random box I stood on your network, absolutely. If I'm doing it from, let's say, a box that's joined to your domain, which ITN, is that what it was? ITNS pointed out by default, unless people have gone through and changed it, a normal user can join their device to your Active Directory domain. And now it's trusted and it will get those certificates and we're good to go, perhaps, or other things. So it all depends on where you're attacking from to say those will absolutely stop it or not.
What are there's a couple more questions. We'll just have this one and then maybe go over to the breakout room or people can ask in Discord. What are your top CA certificate event IDs to detect on in the security events table?
Ooh.
Oh, he froze. Oh, no, there he is.
I'm still here. That I would have to get back to you on. I'm not going to be able to answer that off the top of my head. Sorry. Okay. There are too many Windows events these days for me to try and remember what they all mean. And they've moved to 4 digits instead of 3, making it even harder for me to remember.
Okay. The other people that asked questions in Zoom, feel free to head over to the breakout room. We may be able to answer those questions there live. And I think because we've only got a couple of minutes here left, Kathy, you can go ahead and do whatever closing.
Yeah, I don't know what the proper closing except for to thank you, Eric, for joining us again. I know you were with us last week. We appreciated your time there as well. And yeah, great presentation. Great job. Thanks for answering all the questions. And we look forward to having you back on again soon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks, Eric. And we'll see everybody over in the breakout room if you want to come.
Bye.
Thank you all. See you soon.
Bye. See ya.